Oh hey, I'm Marc, a professional artist, an art teacher, and in this week's video we're going to be talking about the S word. Your style, your art style. More specifically, what it is, because from what I've seen, there's a lot of confusion around the topic, and also how to actively work to develop yours. It's not that simple, but I've been getting a lot of calls telling me that you want to know more about it, and I might be able to help, but only if you help me too by smashing the like button on the video. Impressive. Let's go. Alright, so this short-ish video will be split in two parts. How I even define art style, how you should too. And then, of course, how to find yours if you haven't already. I know a lot of what I'm about to say has a good degree of subjectivity to it, so if you don't agree, I'd love to hear your point of view down in the comments below so that I can argue with you. This is obviously, a topic that I've spent a good deal of time thinking about over the years, and I think this video will be enlightening to a lot of people. You, hopefully. Unless you're too cool or something. Let's start by defining what art style is. A lot of artists get this a bit wrong. I'm going to be comparing artists and culinary students a lot here because I think it helps get my point across. You'll see. Yeah, so what is it? Your art style, if you have any, is how you interpret and represent reality. If you have a bold style, for example, your art might look nothing like reality. Think cartoons. But you can also have a more grounded style where you stick closer to reality and make smaller tweaks. I think I define my own style as pretty grounded, for example. I use real anatomy for the most part, except I'll usually simplify, like remove certain details to achieve the look that I want. My shading and coloring is also very much based on real physics, and my proportions are somewhat close to reality. Anyways, I made sure to specify just a couple seconds ago that if you have any, talking about art styles of course, because I strongly believe that having an art style is only possible if you reach a certain level of knowledge of fundamentals. Before then, there's no style. Style is something that you earn, or maybe not earn, but discover with time and practice. Before becoming an actual style, it's just a lack of knowledge. I know some people out here are probably already rage typing in comments, but hear me out here just for a bit, please. Okay, imagine a bunch of 3 to 4-year-old kids drawing characters on paper. Completely random example, but I think most would probably expect this drawing to be different, between each kid at least, that we might or might not understand what we see, but even if the kids are usually good at drawing, it's expected none of them would actually look like reality. Not the kids, but their drawing. Right? Kids' drawings might be cute, but, technically speaking, they usually suck. Kids are just bad at art, but they're just starting, so it's normal. Would you say they have a style, though? Probably not, right? At least I say no. At their level, they're either copying poorly other things that they've seen, like cartoons or other drawings, or they're trying to draw from real life, from reference, also poorly. They don't have yet enough knowledge to interpret what they see properly, and even less so to represent it. You can only really call it an art style when the artist is making a conscious decision to alter what they see. If the decision is unconscious or, like simply due to a lack of skills, that's not style. Let's think about it from a different point of view maybe. So take a beginner artist, and the parallel here will be with a culinary student. So it's the first day of classes and everyone is learning a basic recipe to make bread. And of course, understand, the chemistry that goes behind or that goes into bread rising. You'd expect most students to look at their recipe and follow it to the letter, right? If you don't know much about the process, there's no real way around it. You just follow the damn recipe. But what if one of the students decides, screw it, I'm going to modify this recipe a bit just for the lulz, and of course, end up with a cake hard like a rock. Nobody would look at the result and say, it's just my style of cooking, right? It's just a bad cake. What was it? A bread. It's just a bad bread. That's it. Some people might think it tastes good though. There's all kinds of people in the world, but most will probably not touch it. It's the same with art. If your recipe, or in this case, your fundamentals, aren't followed properly, you end up with technically bad art, not a style. Now, don't get me wrong, some people out there might still love the results. Art is very subjective after all, just like food tastes. But there's a huge technical aspect to it you just really can't ignore, and instead just decide to call it your style choice. I'm pretty sure that's illegal. So now that we're on the same page about what is a style and what isn't, how do you actually find your style if you're a beginner artist? Or fine-tune your style if you already have one, if you have some experience, but don't feel it's quite there yet. Well, hopefully the answer works for both cases. And what I would say is that you develop your style by copying. Oh, what did I just say? Think about it though. Your style is how you interpret and represent reality. If you only ever study from real life, trying to learn and make sense of fundamentals by copying what you observe as closely as possible, you'll end up with a, pretty realistic style, some would think. Like, I don't know, like a lot of the old masters had. Some of them almost looked like photos. It was so good. So close to reality. With enough experience though, you'll probably develop some shortcuts or preference in your method, in your process, and might even start to, I don't know, like simplify some things you see here and there, maybe oversaturate some colors to excite the eye more, or paint in a, I don't know, very limited value range just for fun. Since you know enough to purposefully deviate from reality while still keeping things aesthetic. Or, again with the cooking comparison, you know enough to tweak the bread recipe and potentially make it better. Most artists that study art in a structured way, either at an art school or through some sort of program, will usually do this, meaning starting with the fundamentals and learning from real life, or studying from real life. And you will end up developing your very own style over time. It's inevitable. But it takes time. Depending on how dedicated you are or not, it can take a very long time. But that's how you develop your art style. Considering you're alone in the world. But we aren't, are we? We have the intrawebs. There is a way to speed up the process, and that's where things get interesting, I think. Now, for example, if your friend is that guy whom I just described, that's someone who's been studying from real life, copying what he sees on his own, and after many years ended up developing his own style. What if instead of doing the same he did, it works, but what if instead you copied his style? Wouldn't that save you years of trial and error? Yeah, boy, it would. But no, copying others is bad. Okay, so instead, what if you just copied some of the shortcuts he takes? Like, let's say you like how he simplifies the human nose when drawing it. Or maybe not even that much. Maybe you like how he draws the nostrils in a simpler way. Try doing the same thing. What if you like how another artist draws the eyes? Try copying that too. What if you really like the color palettes from another artist? Or the line quality, or the shading, or whatever? Just copy all of it. Combine it all. As you do this more and more, borrowing more things from more artists, your own style will start to shape up almost as a bundle of a bunch of some aspects of other people's style. And the way you combine what you copy from other artists will essentially define your style. Usually you'll copy things you like, so you'll probably keep doing it for each new piece of art that you create. And as you follow the same recipe every single time, using various ingredients borrowed from various artists, you'll end up with a custom recipe of your own style. It's just that instead of finding all the shortcuts on your own, all the different ways that you can simplify the things that you see in nature in real life, you look at what other people did and do that too. You don't need to come up with all the answers. Now, if we just look at my own style, for example, I copied a ton of stuff when I was younger. A lot of Dragon Ball, then Warcraft art. Then I started watching anime, so my style definitely took a lot from that genre. Then I worked at Blizzard for almost 8 years, which of course, impacted my style some more. And since I left, I've been studying a lot more from real life, which has also contributed to my style. Recently, if you've noticed, it's been, shifting a little bit. All of this to say, I copied all the things from my art to get to this point. What I copied is not the art itself, though. It's how certain artists treat the fundamentals, how they interpret it. The end result is unique, since my ingredients are different than yours and different than everybody else. It's a different combination of things that I copy. That's how I was able to develop a style relatively young by copying a little from a lot of artists and stitching it all together like I'm, Victor Frankenstein working on my monster. So yeah, there you have it. Not everything can be called an art style. You need a certain level of knowledge and experience to even start to worry about it. But when you begin to piece together your art style, copy. Copy from real life a lot, of course, very, very important. Copy other artists, but don't copy the art itself. If that's not clear already, only copy the elements of art, the ingredients that make up the art itself, not the final piece itself. But you also don't want to copy all the ingredients or the interpretation from another artist. You would have the same recipe. That doesn't work. Instead, copy the individual ingredients from a lot of different artists. This way, your style will be unique, but you'll develop it much faster than copying from real life only. And now I know that the word copying is maybe not the most appropriate in this case because it has kind of this negative connotation, but it's what we do to learn, right? We copy what we see in nature. You go to figure drawing class to observe people and draw them. You're essentially copying them. You're copying what you see in nature, at least to the best of your ability. So yeah, anyways, I hope this cleared up a couple of things for you. But if you don't agree with some of the stuff that I said, no problem. Tell me why. I'd love to read it. Of course, if it helped and you're interested in more content like this, consider subscribing and giving the video a thumbs up. I do my best every Friday to help. That's it for today. As usual, I'll be scouting the comment section, making sure I read every comment, and I'll see you next time.